They're telling it like it is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. We're a purpose before profit group that love giving back and helping and sharing our knowledge. If you're interested, reach out. Our website will be up there. We actually just redid our website. It's better than it was before. That's all I'm going to say. But we also have Founders Coffee every Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. Red's Diner in Kensington. Come out, meet fellow entrepreneurs, meet fellow like-minded people. It's a great place to just network and understand some of the struggles and issues that entrepreneurs actually do go through on a daily basis. And I am extremely willing here. Long time together through the squad against each other, the squash community. And I was always intrigued by Urllo, and now I don't know why it's taking me so long to bring you on, William, but I'm excited. Welcome to be here, and how's your day going?
Well, thanks for having me. Day's going great so far. It's warming up and getting brighter, so I'm a happier person every day.
Oh, I know both of our girls play high-end softball, and I'm so excited to get out of the cages and indoors and out onto a diamond. I can't tell you. I'm looking outside right now, and I'm in platform, got an AI conference here, but oh man, and just the sunshine. I'm ready for summer.
Yeah, me too. I'm always ready for summer.
So, one of the things I love, great entrepreneurs like yourself is telling a little bit about your history and how you got into entrepreneurship, or what drove you to be an entrepreneur. So why don't we talk about that before we talk? You can actually just dive right into why you founded Urllo.
Sure, yeah. So I'm a professional nerd. I love learning and I love computers and I was always fascinated by what I could make with code. And that started from when I was a teenager, and it goes through all the way to today. So, when I was really young, I, was, on the forefront of building websites when that was new, and designing and building that kind of stuff. I've had all kinds of careers in all kinds of stuff to do with IT and programming and network operations. So I've got like this really broad set of experience. So that's one aspect of me. And then the entrepreneurship aspect of me is that I've just always kind of been fascinated by business in general, and the fact that it is actually a super creative thing. I think there's sometimes a misnomer that business is not creative by some people, when I think that it is probably one of the most creative things, and you're only going to really survive if you're really creative. And so, yeah, like that's kind of the background of my ethos. Along the way, I've been a contractor and worked in IT, in large energy companies, in the government. I've also done a couple of startups, some as a founder, some as an individual contributor or a senior leadership team member. And along the path of all of that, this idea that eventually became Urllo, was born, and slowly evolved in a bootstrap style all the way to today.
Well, that's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about your prior world, before founding Urllo. Like, what did you learn? I see so many entrepreneurs and sometimes I find that we don't talk about the reality of entrepreneurship and how tough it can be, and what our learnings are from. And I truly believe some of the best ideas come from those prior experiences, to find like, hey, there's something here that I missed in a gap. So what did you learn about your young self as an entrepreneur, and maybe some of the mistakes and or successes you had?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to sum it all up in one short, snippy way, I would say build it and they will come does not work. This is my key learning for all of the previous things that I've done. And I can speak specifically about the company I founded before this company, which was called Freeholder, and it was a company that was all around solving the problems that exist in the communication space with condos. So this is like condo owners, condo boards of directors, and property managers, and the three of them need to communicate, and they have historically done a pretty bad job of that. And so I built some software around enabling this kind of communication. This was based on 10 years of being on condo boards and seeing how all of this stuff ran, working with lots of different property management companies. And so the key problem is that I built this product which did what it said it was going to do, and tried to sell it to people, and they agreed that it did what it said it should do, and what they needed it to do, but no one could agree on who should pay for it. The property management companies thought the condo boards should pay for it. The condo boards thought the property management companies should pay for it. And in the end, it was not saleable. It was just not a saleable idea, at least not in the amount of time and energy that we had to devote to it. So this was this kind of key learning, and that is what informed very foundationally how I built Urllo from the beginning, which was to try to uh, sell it before you've got it, basically. Now, we never took any money, but the idea of assessing the market's appetite for a product before you actually really invest a lot into it is crucial a learning for me.
Well, I think that's extremely important, and thank you for sharing that. It is hard, right? It's hard to bootstrap. It's hard to do. It's hard to sell. And then never mind talking about down the road to raise capital. That's a whole new world on what a person is trying to do in the industry. So in those early days of Urllo, what was it like? Like, so, when you said, okay, I've got an idea now, how did you come up with this idea of Urllo? And then talk a little bit about the early days.
Sure, yeah. So the idea of Urlo came from a need that I had, and the need was that in my previous role, we were launching a big website, a brand new shiny website for a very large Australian winery, and they were investing a lot of money into this new product, and we had done a really great job of it. And about 24 hours before we were going to launch, they were like, "Oh, by the way, we own all of these domain names for all of these brands of wine that we have, and we just need you to redirect them to this to the new page on the website that you just built for us." And of course, it would be like, well, would have been nice to know this more than 24 hours in advance. Um, but let me try to, I'll solve that problem for you. And I went looking for a solution like what eventually became Urlo. And I didn't find one that I would put my name behind. There were some, free services that looked like they were built in 1997, and there was nothing that we would put our name behind and trust that it would work. And that seemed kind of crazy to me that this didn't exist. It seemed like everyone would have some kind of need like this at some point in time. And so that was the nexus of the idea.
Oh, I love it. Again, as we talked about before, it comes from a problem, right? That you're looking a client and you're like, holy smokes, like there's a lot of garbage out there. I can build something better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, you need the talent to do that. Jade Alberts could not do that. I mean, the only thing I know about tech is that Python's a snake. So, like, literally, I could not do that. So, kudos to you for building something.
Thank you.
Well, now let's talk a little bit about the product and how it works, and I think we'll get into some of the customers and things like that in a little bit here. But let's talk about the basics of it.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Urlo, if you were to sum up Urlo, what we do and what we believe is that every connection matters. So, really, what our products are around is this concept of maintaining connection with your audience when you're going through a change. And so that change is something like a website migration. Maybe you're going to some new technology. Maybe you're updating your structure on your idea about how you're doing content. You're using different domain names. Maybe this is an acquisition, and you need to redirect the acquisition to your new website. There's all kinds of different reasons. And that's just touching the surface of it. But these kinds of business change events can frequently leave customers in the dark. And so you don't want to miss that because companies have invested tons of money in building these relationships with their customers, with content that they've got. There's links out on the internet pointing to this content. You don't want to lose that stuff when you're going through a business change. And so that's what we're all about, is maintaining those connections when you're evolving your business.
I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, especially for larger clients that are doing like a rebranding or something along those lines. So, is it as simple as like saying, hey, can you come to somebody as small as a peer guidance or something like that is doing it? So, what type of client size do you generally deal with, and are there specific industry, or is this is pretty much industry agnostic? I mean, that's my guess, right?
Yeah, it's pretty industry agnostic. We do deal with customers of all kinds of sizes. I would say that our sweet spot is the sort of medium-sized business and larger. Again, not to say that there isn't ways to help smaller folks, but
Yeah.
when you look at who our customers are, they do tend to be on the larger side of things. Um, and yeah, so we manage that infrastructure, this hosted infrastructure that takes care of all of this for them, so that they don't have to think about the IT stuff. I mean, what the beauty of our product is it's engineered to let non-technical people do this otherwise pretty technical thing. And so there's a little bit of help from a technologist needed to set up DNS stuff in the very beginning. But other than that, this is a tool that you can put in the hands of your marketing team and they can take it from there. And that just completely removes the need for IT to get involved and for tickets and weeks of inaction. It really, marketing folks want to move fast, right? And so
Yeah.
we give them those tools.
So when you're talking about moving fast here, and I love that, right? I think that's extremely important. When you're trying to sell to a company, and you're trying to work on that side, and you're going to be crossing many paths, whether it be marketing, whether it be HR, maybe IT, and then of course your sweet, wanted it yesterday. How do you talk, manage that? Because I know a lot of startups and founders have that problem. Like, well, where do I go? Do I just go to the top? The top doesn't talk to the mid or the bottom. Like, how have you done that with Urlo?
Yeah, it is really tricky, and it's actually getting a lot harder to sell into enterprise than it has in the past because there's more and more voices at the table. The birth of a discovery of Urlo tends to right now focus a lot around SEO. And so people are looking for these kinds of solutions. So we frequently the sale starts with the kind of individual contributor that's tasked with solving this problem, whether it be on the marketing, it might be a business team member, and that might be it's usually a marketing team, but it could also be an HR team. It could be any business user within a company. And then we typically need to loop in the IT folks because they, rightfully so, need to make sure that the solution makes sense, it's secure, it's performant, it meets their internal policy needs. So we have all these voices at the table, and yeah, it can be tricky at times.
Oh, I can imagine, right? It's always, it's a question that we get all the time when we're working. Who do we sell to? Why do we sell to? And it's not a straightforward answer, because, as you say, the higher up and the bit larger company that you get, the more voices that are at the table, and all it really takes is one person to say, I don't think we need this.
Yeah, it's true. And the fear of messing up is real. Like we talk about FOMO in the B2C world, rather, like
Yeah.
fear of missing out. And in the B2B world, it's all about FOMO, fear of messing up. And so as soon as anyone smells the fear of messing up, they bail and they're like, what's the status quo? Let's do that.
Oh, well, isn't that the truth, right? Like, it's they no, no. When you're you've just gone through a rebrand here, so why don't we? I mean, we always talk. Companies will always go through a rebrand, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And people saying, "Oh, it's just my name. It's just something different. I need to do this." Why don't you talk about why you went through that rebrand. Talk about some of the challenges that you had, trying to rebrand your own product, and share some of the trials and tribulations of that with our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So the rebrand was not something that I originally wanted to do. My VP revenue came to me initially with this idea, and I was like, "Oh God, that sounds really hard." And then, like we had to talk about it a lot just to even get on the same page. But ultimately, here's where we ended up. There's two main reasons why we rebranded. Um, One is that Easy Reader was a name that didn't really reflect where we were going or what the most important problems of our customers were. So when you ask our enterprise customers, what are the biggest problems that you have, and like what kind of solutions do you need? Like they need reliable, they need secure, they need performant. If you're to ask them where easy is on that list, it's fourth at best, right? They need these other things more than they need easy. And then the reader part, which is short for redirect, was one aspect of what we did, but it was quite limiting because we had aspirations for, as I said, the new brand is all about every connection matters. And so we have all kinds of tooling that we can bring to the table to enable these kinds of connections, to maintain these connections. Redirects is just one part of it. So ultimately, the name was like not really reflective of what was important to our customers and very limiting in what we could do. So that was the basis of the idea that this isn't really serving us anymore. And so then we started exploring, like, okay, well, what could we be? And so we had every idea under the sun. I mean, we went really wide, and this kind of diverging, converging idea. We were diverging into all kinds of thought and what we could be, and then we kind of narrowed it down and figured out who we were. And this name Urllo popped up, and again, initially I was like, I hate this name. It was my first reaction. And then I had to sit on it for a while and think about it and kind of look at it. And I was like, no, actually, I like it. I like it because it's kind of, I describe it a little bit as like the tofu of brand names, because like you don't really know what it means and you can make it taste like whatever you want it to taste like. So um, it's very flexible. You could fit a lot of stuff under this umbrella of Urllo.
So how long did it take you to grow on it? Was it like, weeks, or was it something or did people have to sit there and pester you to say you're going to like it?
It was weeks, I would say, weeks to like maybe a month or two before I was like, this really is the best of all the options that we've been, presented with and we've thought about. So yeah, it was about that. And then we had to, do our due diligence to make sure that, can we get this domain name? Can we get trademarks for this thing? So there was a bunch of stuff around that. And then when that all checked out, it was like, all right, let's pull the trigger.
Well, that's pulling. And how is that? How is that? How has that changed? How's the rebrand gone for whether existing? Did you have to tell her? Or was everybody just, obviously it was easy for you to probably redirect everything from the old site to the new one, I'm guessing. But
Yeah,
how how
there's a
how
case
is how,
study in
how has
here
it gone?
somewhere. It's been great. The brand has been super well received by our customers and everyone who's seen it. I think some of the feedback that we received that like really touched me the most was stuff around like, I was really kind of shocked at first, and then it made sense, and then I wondered if my price was going to go up. This is the best reaction that I could have had.
Yeah, we rebranded. We're charging more.
But if it looks like you should be able to charge more, that's a good sign.
Oh, that's a good point, right? Well, it's good. I mean, the rebranding looks good. I know you had a nice little brand rebranding launch. You obviously are growing. I mean, both of us are big fans of Alex and Work Nicer, and you've grown out of that. You've moved into you kind of moved into the Edison building, so your team is expanding, and obviously things are going well.
Yeah, absolutely. They are. We've actually got a new team member starting at the end of March, and probably another one coming shortly thereafter. So we'll see where we end up. But yeah, we're definitely growing. We have no shortage of work on our backlog. We have no shortage of ideas to execute on. So yeah, like the hard part is actually figuring out what do we want to do next.
Well, that's a good problem to have. Again, I'm talking with William Richards, the founder of Urllo. For you want to check out their website, it is in the comments section. Just click on it, or urllo.com. It'll take you directly there. Find out some more information. So I want to dive into a little bit about your business growth, because you bootstrapped it, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that we don't talk about enough. All four of the companies that the one that, our first one that we exited, and all the other ones that I've been part of, have all been bootstrapped. Just recently here, we've had to raise a little capital for a new venture that I'll probably talk about relatively soon. But I think we've kind of lost the art of bootstrapping in our community. Where I am sitting right now at Platform, I sometimes feel that they say, you got an idea, build a get, go talk to investors. I'm like, that's kind of backwards. I don't like that. Go build a business, build something that's good for yourself, build something that you can be proud of, that support you and your family. And then, if it's scalable, that's great. Then maybe look at it that way. So why don't you talk a little bit about your bootstrapping journey and some of the pros and cons of it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of bootstrapping wherever you can. Ultimately, if you don't have to answer to investors, you know, take this with a grain of salt, but generally speaking, you can take a more longer term view. Investors want to see short-term growth, and sometimes what you need to do to really deliver for the business is not going to deliver short-term growth. It's a longer-term play, and if you've got the patience to sit around and do that, that's great. Investors are not going to be good for your patience. Having said that, there are kinds of businesses that simply require a level of capital that most people can't bring to the table. So maybe if you've exited and you've made hundreds of millions of dollars, you could bootstrap a really capital intensive business. But for the most part, people can't do that. So like I don't want to dump on all VC funding, and there may come a day when we decide the right thing to do is to do a huge capital raise for some reason. um, my preference is to grow the business as much as possible, in the way that we want to grow it. um, yeah, I think that sums it up.
No, and I love that, right? And again, I've invested in companies. I still invest in companies. I get it, right? I understand it. Big fan of bootstrapping, and I agree with you, right? I like the fact that if I want to make a decision, I want to make that decision now, and if it's wrong, I don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I can call myself an idiot. I'm okay with that, right? Like, I don't want to sit there and say, having opinions coming in from everybody, and then, the level of stress that I can't even imagine that may add to an already stressful situation of being an entrepreneur at an early stage.
Yeah, I totally agree. It seems very stressful to me, particularly because I'm a technology guy. Like, I'm not a finance guy, and I don't know how to write, all these kinds of board reports and all this stuff that I would need to do. Like, I think probably, 20 to 30% of my job, if we raised money, would be just investor relations, and doing all of the due diligence and reports around that. And so, like, I also get to save a bunch of time and put it into tech stuff that I know how to do. That's where I can really deliver value, as opposed to, making sure investors feel heard.
Yeah, no, I agree, right? And time waits for no one. Like, I mean, literally, like, what's the most valuable thing that people always say? Oh my God, I'm so busy. I need more time. You know what it is? Well, if you don't have to go out and bang on doors and try and build those relationships, what could you accomplish, or who could you be selling to grow your business?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, one of the other things that I really think is important about bootstrap businesses, as opposed to raising a ton of money, is that it forces you to figure out what actually works sooner. And you can sort of mask businesses that don't work with capital injections, because you can always pay people to be your customer. That's a thing you can do, right? You can overinvest in marketing and give crazy incentives and make the service cheaper than it is, reasonable to commercially offer that. And you can just delay this understanding of, like, how do you fundamentally actually make money? And so you can't do that when you're bootstrapped. You have to figure that out real quick.
Oh, very quick. Very quick is probably an understatement. It's not quick enough, right?
Yeah.
But but part of that, and I mean, again, this is some of the best bootstrapping advice I've ever had on this show in 350 some episodes. So thank you for sharing that. And there's, again, the pros and cons of it are, you can talk about both, as you said, right? But understanding what your customers want quickly and early can really make a difference on how fast you're going to grow and who you're going to bang on doors next.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind, is some of the best advice that most entrepreneurs should get. Like, if you're not talking to your clients, if you're not getting your product in front of them, and if you find out that maybe they don't want to pay for this, then you're in even bigger trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe you figure out that they only want to pay X for this and you need to charge Y in order to make it commercially viable. So there's maybe some creativity there. You can figure out how to drive those costs down or figure out how to get them to pay more money. But those things need to be found out early.
Yeah, and the earlier the better, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's such an important part of your growth process and where you're going to go as a company, and your timeline on what you need to do. So get in there. Now, speaking of timeline and what's going on, what is next for yourself? Maybe a little short term here, with Urllo, and maybe a 5-year vision.
Yeah, well, we're gonna keep executing on our product vision. We were actually part of the Growth Catalyst program. I'm not sure if you or your listeners have heard of that, but it's a great program. Super recommend that if you are able to do that. That is very helpful. So we came up with a 5-year long kind of business plan, vision, really, of where we want to go. We're executing on that. I don't want to give too many details, but it involves additional products and services.
Nice.
And so we're staffing up to be able to do that. And yeah, so short term, we're going to still do what we do. We're going to be building new products and services all around this idea of every connection matters. That's the core ethos that drives us. And yeah, we're excited.
And what about long term? Like, do you do business just, is it more North America? Or is this a worldwide product that you offer right now?
It's global, so you can buy it from anywhere. We are a lot of our business is in the United States right now, and so we do have customers all over the world in 75 countries, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah, we do a lot of business in the United States. We do some in Canada. We do some in Europe, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and then all kinds of other countries as well. And so we might be, we'll see what's going on with this crazy trade world that we live in right now. So we might be doing some more focus on Europe. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Go there.
Yeah, we got a little internet issue.
Oh, we always have internet issues. That's what I love about live. Is it's like running it's like running a business. You just never know what you have to do and where you're going to have to go. So again, I mean, it's been a great conversation, and again, thank you for coming in and sharing your knowledge. But I do have one more question, and I love hearing this. I love hearing the answers. I figured this is a question I would stop asking after about 50 times, but it just keeps on going because the advice that I hear and you guys share is just priceless. So, if you had one piece of advice for a startup or entrepreneur, William, what would that be?
I would say just deeply know your customer. That
I
would be
love that.
my one piece of advice. I think that if you deeply know your customer, you can solve a lot of problems that your business will have.
I mean, that just goes in entirely with the theme of the conversation that we had about how you're doing, and changing your brand and bootstrapping and understanding and getting to the issues of how to grow your business properly. And I love that. And I think that's probably the best advice anybody anywhere could give.
Right.
I'm not going to knock anybody else's, anybody else's advice over the 7 years of this show, but the, I can't stress enough about how you getting out there. I got it, and even my shirt today. Always be selling, right? Like
Yeah.
Glengarry, away do you go, right? Get in there, and sell to your clients. Understand them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Coffee's for closers.
Oh, I
It's an
mean,
inside reference. If you haven't seen Glengarry Glen Ross, you won't understand that.
people understand that. And the funny thing is I can't remember what kid show it was on. Well, Boss Baby was on, and Alex Baldwin was the actual voice of the kid. And he changed the phrase as cookies for closers. And you can tell all the parents that were in the theater were laughing, and all the kids were like, well, that's not funny. We're like, well, most of us get it. Well, William, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge, and congrats on all your business ventures and the success and the brand rebranding of Urllo. And again, anybody wants to click on the website, just it's in the comment section, urllo.com. Check it out, reach out to them. If you have any questions and you're watching this after the fact, please do not hesitate to put them in the comment section. We'll reach out, talk to them. But again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, Jade. It's been a pleasure.
And for anybody else, it's a beautiful day out there. Let's hopefully that spring is here. We'll get outside and let's start having some outdoor patio meetings maybe.